This was a really cheap pickup from Reckless Records. It was like $4 or $5, but awesome fucking record. The band is called Futh, Fuath, and what this is, if you're not familiar, is solo project of the dude from Shore, Saor, which is a Scottish band making a lot of waves in the atmospheric black metal realm of things. So this is his side or solo project. Very stripped down, very very just necro sounding sort of black metal in the style of Paysage d'Hiver. It's kind of like one of those pronounced or almost announced tributes to Paysage d'Hiver, as some bands seem to be doing. Really blew me away. I downloaded this when it first came out off of the Bandcamp, and I kind of and I listened to it on headphones, but putting it on CD, I think the clarity of the CD really helped me kind of understand the overall atmosphere going on. It's a great pickup. Probably the best thing out of this whole pile, I would say. Next, got this in from Discogs in the mail. This is Zisma's first record, Yeah, and it has 2 bonus demos on there, The Fate of Morgana and Above the Mind of Morbidity. I don't think I had ever listened to this band until the other day. I just put on the Yeah, I got through a couple of tracks. In case you don't know, Finnish death metal, recorded in Sunlight Studios. Very early Finnish death metal, not one of those albums that came out in like 92, 93, or 94. This came out in 1990, and these demos, it doesn't say. I would say the demos are probably from 87, 88, 89 or so. But really, really strange stuff. This is their most down-to-earth, most death metal release. They went on to do more weird 90s kind of rock-sounding weird shit that I don't imagine anybody would like. But this, even early on, shows a lot of strange experimentation, almost like a band that would have been getting bored with the style that they were doing for a couple of years. And to hear that that's kind of the case as early as 1990 is just really strange. So it's just kind of one of those albums that's been showing up on a lot of classic Finnish death metal lists, and I thought I would pick up a copy of it and check it out. Next is an album I've loved for many, 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 many years, Punishment for Decadence by Coroner. I don't see what's wrong with a little bit of decadence. I've got a lot of CDs. It's kind of a decadent hobby. Who really wants to punish me for being decadent? I don't see what the big deal is. Anyways, the decadence here is riffs. Fucking speed metal thrash riffs by the Swiss Legends. This is a reissue that came out into 1991. I could have swore this was a lot newer. Yeah. Always wanted to get a copy of this and picked up their Rest in Peace earlier this year. Needed to finish up getting their good albums. I don't really know what. I know they put out a couple of albums after this, and I don't know if I've heard them. What's the general verdict on their later era stuff? Is any of their shit after Punishment for Decadence worth getting? Let me know. Next is Gates to Sheol by Gloria Diaboli, out on Battle Command Records. This is a reissue, I think, of EP that was put out really limited quantities at some point, but just a quick little nasty black metal EP. I've had a download of this for many, many, many years and always liked it, always meant to get a copy of it. And I found it used so that none of my money goes back to the bastards that released this. So a buddy that I went to the show with on Saturday, how you doing, Brandon? Hope you're watching, is a big fan of Eichenskaden. And I am pretty unfamiliar with Eichenskaden. Found this in the used bin for a couple of bucks. Decided to give it a shot. This is There Is No Light at the End of the Tunnel. How true that is. This is a solo project by a man who decided to kill himself underneath the wheels of a train. It's a fucking brutal way to go. Blackmetal.com put this out a couple of years ago. Don't really know much about it. It's sort of like, I guess from what I know, it's really melancholic, sort of black metal, and maybe in the vein of Life Lover, in a way. Hope I'm not too far off the bat. Next is Arid Weathering, Tides of War. Northern Silence put this out about 2 or 3 years ago. If you're interested in this, be careful because there is another band from Sweden with the same name, and that's because Arid Weathering is a Tolkien reference or something. So what this is so Caladan Brood is 2 guys. One of them is I'm not sure which one is Shield Anvil or whatnot. Either one of the guys does a solo project called Gallowbraid, and he also sings in Visigoth. And the other guy, this, as far as I know, is the only other band he does. So this is his solo project, Tides of War. It's, I don't know, I've listened to it a couple of times on Bandcamp and thought there were some great moments. But as a whole, it kind of isn't a great listen. But decided to get it for a couple of bucks and give it a fair shake on CD for, if at worst, only for the couple of good moments on it. Next, Dimmu Borgir, Spiritual Black Dimensions. My buddy suggested I get a copy of this, and I was kind of like, I don't know. But I'm really glad I did. I put this on the drive home and listened to it front to back, and it fucking blew my mind in a way. Not blew it really hard, but just kind of like blew my mind, kind of like that. Anyways, I like this band. I even liked the Enthroned Darkness Triumphant album, and I wound up liking Death Cold Armageddon. For some reason, the 2 albums between those 2 albums, I never really got around to getting a copy of or liking or what have you. And those are the albums I think that everybody was just jumping on top of. I think I remember hearing this right after it came out, and I was like, a little bit too synthy for me or whatever. But that was fucking 18 years ago. So I decided to give this a second shot, and I'm really glad I did. I forgot how much I enjoyed Choldalv's drumming in Dimmu Borgir. This is the last record that he plays on. And also just thinking about their former style, and it's really kind of helped me understand the progression of the band coming out of the 90s era and into the 2000s. And this isn't too bad of a record, really. Glad I have a copy of it. Next we've got Ashdautas, Where the Sun is Silent. This came out on Full Moon. I should have looked this up before. I'm gonna guess maybe 2006 or 7 or something like that. Now, these guys broke up soon after this was released, but I remember them being quite a big deal. There was a lot of talk about these guys on the Full Moon message boards back in the day. Most notably, these guys started, or I'm not sure if they started it or if they were just like the first band out of the group to have a release, but the Black Twilight Circle that many people have come to know more about through bands like Volan, Shatan, Arismenda, slew of others that I don't know. I don't really keep up with that circle of bands all that much. There's a couple of gems in there, but this is the first one, the first release from a band out of that group. And I put this on the other day, and I remembered liking it a lot more than I did when I had it on the other day. So could chalk it up to not really being in the mood for nasty, raw black metal lately, like I usually am. But the drums were super muddy. Everything was just kind of cloudy and poorly produced, so much to a point where I was just kind of annoyed with how the music was really good, but it just wasn't recorded adequately. So I don't know. Maybe I'll put that on someday and blow my gourd. But yeah, that's Ashdautas. Really like the cover on that. I've always loved that Beksinski artwork that they used. Next is an album. Let's see. I can't remember if I've actually heard this or not, but this is Gris, or Gris, Gris. French title. I'm not even going to try. Sepulchral Productions put this out at some point, but it's this record. I don't know. Look it up. Definitely put a link down below for you to listen to it. I really love these guys' double album that came out a couple of years ago, and this one came out before it, so I imagine it's a little more elementary, a little more stripped down or something. So I may have had a download of this many moons ago, but I don't remember if I did. This is yeah, I don't really know much about this, but it's a band that I've heard a lot of good things about, and I love that double album by them. This copy's in great shape, too. I was just surprised to see it for so cheap. Next, I've got Funereal Moon. This is a reissue of 2 demos. It's a weird reissue. First demo came out in 1996, and the second one was in 2007. Now, I have a release by these guys. I haven't listened to it in a really long time, but I remember it really resonating with me. It's some super nasty, necrotic, sort of underground black metal from Chile, Argentina, Brazil, not sure, South America somewhere, maybe even Mexico, I'm not sure. But I listened to this for a minute the other day, and it was just fucking terrible. Again, I don't know, maybe I'm just not in the mood for shit like this, but I have found that Autopsy Kitchen tends to put out some of the most mediocre stuff ever. Sans, what's their name? Impalagon. Impalagon is fucking great. But everything else they've ever put out that I have gotten my hands on, didn't really like it so much. So next, this is a weird one. How about some Fuckhole Armageddon by Octinomos? Decided to pick this up because I've always been kind of curious to hear this band. I want to say this is one of the worst albums by this solo project. But mainly the reason I got this is because this dude is also in Parnassus, which is a brilliant project from Sweden. I think this guy was also in Vergelmer, but he also played in... This artwork is fucking terrible. He also played in on the first Algion EP, which is fucking great. So Baphomet Records and Necropolis put this out probably around 2000, 2001 or so. Haven't listened to it yet. Can't really say much about it then. Next is Deathspell Omega, split with Moonblood, Demoniac Vengeance. I don't know if the Moonblood side is a reissue of one of their rehearsal demos or what the story is on this. Never been a Moonblood fan, really. And I didn't know that this was ever released on CD. This apparently is a bootleg, I think. But it was like $4. I decided I definitely need to get a copy of this. I really like Deathspell Omega's early stuff. And I don't think I've ever bothered to download this release. Very minimal packaging, not much to it, but cool to have more Deathspell Omega in my collection. Next, this came in the mail while I was gone. This is an album I played in my Why Metal YouTubing is Important video. This is Calmencanta. That's how you pronounce it in Finnish, as far as I can tell. This is their latest release, and it's fucking phenomenal. Top 5 album of the year, for sure. The album is called Routama. Routamaa. Not sure if that's how you pronounce that. But if this interests you whatsoever, I urge you to pick up a copy of this because there are only 100 of these worldwide. It's pretty rare, and it should still be available from Wolfspell Records or the band's Bandcamp. I'll be sure to link both down below so you can check it out. But this is excellent, excellent black metal. I wish that this was the direction that most black metal bands were going. It's super melodic, lots of amazing harmonies going on, but also maintains a lot of grim atmosphere to it. It's fucking killer. Like I said, when I put this on the other day, it just fucking blew me straight away. Listened to it nonstop to the end, and it just fucking killed me. Their earlier stuff has a lot of kind of Catatonia influence, and I feel like a couple of albums ago, it sounded a lot more like Catatonia, but this is a nice progression away from that, and it finds the band, I think, finding their own personality a little bit stronger. Really great record. Can't wait to hear more stuff from these guys. It looks like they're putting out about 2 or 3 records a year, so gonna have to keep up with those guys. Next is a record that Eric Bauer talked about in his video. I would say out of all the other metal YouTubers, Eric Bauer gets me to buy stuff more than anybody. And he mentioned this in his Stone Cold Black Metal Classics. Now, I've listened to Creator. They're not one of my favorite thrash bands, and thrash isn't necessarily one of my favorite genres. When I feel like listening to thrash, usually it's Destruction, Tankard, or Au Noir, something like that. I really do like Extreme Aggression. Terrible Certainty, and what's the other one? Pleasure to Kill, of course, by these guys. And when I was getting into metal, one of my best friends, Ron, this is one of his favorite bands, and he would play Creator quite a bit. But for some reason, either I forgot about it or he just never got around to playing this record for me or something. I'm not sure what it was, but this is their debut from 1985. It was recorded and mixed in 10 days in 1985. This also includes bonus tracks from, I'm guessing, the demo when they were called Tormentor. Am I right about that? This is a reissue that came out in 2000. Got some nice band photos in here. Lyrics, really nice job on this. I saw a couple people pulling out this album. I want to say Pat also mentioned this album maybe. Complaining about the reissued artwork and how the cover was changed and the remastered might not have been so great. So I decided to kind of go back and get an older version of it that wasn't too expensive. Pretty happy with this release. Phenomenal fucking record. Listened to about half of it on the way up to Chicago. And to my mind, I don't think I had ever heard it before that point. Next is an album, I believe, Pat from Ground Zero Salem mentioned on cassette. I think he got a Caligari version of this album on cassette. If it wasn't this album, it was another one by Thy Infernal. I remember hearing about these guys way back in the early 2000s, or maybe even chatting with a member of this band or something. This is a band out of Seattle. Love that artwork by Joe Patagno. This came out on Moribund Records, probably around that time, 2001. Just pure demonic, fucking bestial, hellish black metal. It's like chaotic sort of black metal with a lot of that beef and fucking might that a death metal band usually tends to wield. So pretty cool, infernal, fucking satanic record. Can't ever get enough of that. So this album the other day came up on YouTube and suggested it to me, and it kind of blew my mind. A lot of these are blowing my mind. You ever notice I have like a token phrase that I use for a lot of records in my videos? It means I'm a lazy piece of shit. I am a bad YouTuber. But this fucking album has been in my car non-stop for the last couple of days. Been really enjoying it, and I can't believe it slipped under the cracks or I never heard about it until very recently. Really, really, really hard to pigeonhole as a band or as an album, but I will tell you what I do know about them to give you some sort of an idea. So Century Media put this out in 1994. This is a UK band called Enchantment, and the album is called Dance the Marble Naked. And so on the strength of these guys' demo, Century Media signed them to a 6-album deal. And this is the only one they ever put out. They broke up after this one came out. It was recorded in Academy Studios, who also did Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, I think Cradle of Filth, and maybe even Balsagoth. So, well produced by a seasoned studio. Style-wise, though, I guess I would say its closest kin would be My Dying Bride. It's kind of mid-paced to slow at times. But there's a ton of interesting melody and harmony going on. Really, the guitar work on here is fucking top-notch stuff. Super intricate, really embellished in melody. But it's really all over the map and kind of hard to pigeonhole. It's a super original kind of band that I don't think I've ever heard another person talk about. So that's been just really playing nonstop. And it's one of those records also I put it on, and it's just the riffs are just stuck in my head instantly. I swear I was just kind of like, every once in a while I have like a song going on in my head or a riff that just kind of turns into something else or whatever. And it's not something I always pay that much attention to. But these riffs from this album have been going around kind of swirling in my head on and on and on for the last couple of days, because this has been all I've been listening to for the last couple of days. So please check this out. Enchantment, Dance the Marble Naked. It's a really strange, kind of out of nowhere sort of album that I don't know why nobody ever talks about them. Kind of along those same lines is this next record that I got in the mail from Discogs, Miscreants with Dreaming Ice. My buddy Tanner talked about this album in my top 5 most challenging albums video. a couple of months ago, and I've been meaning to pick up a copy of it since then. Wrong Again Records put this out, and this is kind of a rarity, not an easy thing to find, but this is such a strange Swedish blackened death metal. It's one of those things that's kind of blackened death metal, but it really predates a lot of black metal whose style kind of pervades these days. But man, what a strange band. We can go back and listen to what Tanner said about this, but upon a couple of listens to this album, this seems like a band who just had too many ideas to fit on one record. There's so many tiny little tangents and offshoots, little parts and ideas that can range in breadth from a little tiny weird drum fill that he doesn't repeat here and there to a harmony put over the top of something else that just doesn't seem like it doesn't fit. So at first listen, it might sound really chaotic and strange and like discordant and messy at times, like compositionally messy. The playing on it, of course, is flawless. But it's just a really strange anomaly of an album that doesn't seem to really go anywhere. I don't know if these records or band or members of this band ever went on to do anything else, but it's just kind of one of those strange oddities that happened and people mostly forgot about. But I love albums like this that are just a strange little kind of timepiece for that period. And yeah, it kind of doesn't really fit along in with anything else of its time, and I can't really say that I would see its influence going on further that much past when it was released. One of those albums that just kind of came out, was good for its time for a couple of years, and got buried underneath all the other stuff that happened in Sweden since then. So I think that brings us to the end of all the shit I've gotten in the past few days. Yeah, I think we're all caught up. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.